Welcome to Rebel Chaser. My name is Gail, and I have a video for you from Judge Washington. She is hearing about some probation violations from this crazy guy. And I'll play the clip and let you guys watch.
24 CR-0035. You have a right to have a hearing on this matter, at which time, if it is found that you violate terms of your probation could be revoked and you could be subjected to the maximum penalty and the underlying offense. In this particular case, you pled guilty to a stalking and were sentenced pursuant to the stalking statute, which is 365 days in the Washtenaw County Jail. At the time of your sentencing, you had 32 days already with credit. Do you understand the allegations against you, Mr. Pezzo?
Yes.
Mr. Lebo, do you know what your client wants to do?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Pezzo, per previous discussion, you're prepared to admit to that violation?
All right. Mr. Pezzo, you fully understand that you have a right to a hearing and you're going to waive your right to have that hearing. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may lower your hand. Did you engage in additional threatening and stalking behavior in violation of my order to not do so towards Lucy Laramie and maybe someone else while you were on probation to this court pursuant to the Alameda County case number 24 CR 003598?
Yes.
All right. I find that there's a knowing and willing admission to the violation of probation. Are you satisfied, Ms. Woods?
Yes, Judge.
Defense is likewise satisfied, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. So at this time, we're going to hear from the victims of this stalking so that I can get a better idea of what is going on. Ms. Laramie, you wanted to talk to me today?
Yes, ma'am. I prepared a statement today for the court.
You may read that at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. May I stand?
You may.
Thank you for the opportunity to share my victim impact statement with the court. It is important for the court to know that it feels challenging to stand here today. This moment is significant to me because this is the first time in over 2.5 years that I have allowed Mr. Pezzo to see me or directly hear from me. It has been my experience that any interaction I have with Mr. Pezzo, good or bad, only provides more oxygen to his behavior. As hard as it is to stand here today to share my experience, I stand before this court because it is important for the court to know the impact that this case has had on me. At the sentencing hearing in September of 2023, I felt optimism about the crossroad that the plea deal offered for both parties and the opportunity for healing and resolution in this case. I still saw the light in my friend, and I believe that the deal was fair and gave Mr. Pezzo an opportunity to balance consequences for his behavior and to have an opportunity to change his behavior and put things on a better trajectory. As I watched the sentencing hearing from YouTube and observed that my impact statement had been read, I remember Mr. Pezzo's apology to me and his promise to the court
Take your time.
To improve his behavior. Thank you. To me, Your Honor, this apology proved to be empty, as the greatest apology is demonstrated with action and not just spoken with words. Mr. Pezzo's actions since the plea bargain and sentencing have had a profound effect on me. At the time of sentencing, I made significant attempts to move on with my life and distance myself further from Mr. Pezzo. When my father learned about this case and what had occurred, he put pressure on me to relocate from the condo that he owned. Having already started a new chapter in 2020, I have been able to settle down in my new community and feel at home. The idea of starting over so quickly was quite a shock, and there was a tremendous amount of reluctance on my part to move. Yet I knew my father was right and wanted what was best for me. It was painful to resign from a job I loved at Zingerman's, to say goodbye to friends and coworkers, and to deal with all the hassles of moving. I made great efforts to conceal the fact that I had relocated and to hide my location to protect my new chapter. This attempt at starting fresh was shattered by a text message I received in January 2024 from a man named Jeff Benedetto. Mr. Benedetto claimed to know me from a Toastmasters club in Ann Arbor where I had served as an officer. Within a short time of communicating, something seemed off, and after reviewing club records, another club officer noted that we had never had a member or guest by this name. After further investigation, I discovered I was communicating with a VoIP account, a disposable internet-based phone number. It was devastating to learn that I was likely communicating with Mr. Pezzo through a fake identity, and that he had learned of my relocation. It was clear that Mr. Pezzo had increased his efforts to conceal his identity and become more elusive. My concern would later be cemented when I learned that the phone number used to contact me had also been used to contact Ms. Irwin in California. In addition, I learned that Mr. Pezzo had openly admitted to her that he had contacted me. I felt horrified when I learned that my concern had proven accurate. In my mind, I wondered, have I changed my entire life again, yet for nothing? And is he going to begin stalking me again? Since the January communication, I have received at least 50 suspicious phone calls and texts, with new attempts occurring every few weeks. Eventually, these contacts escalated into phishing attempts to find my location and additional information about me. The result was a need to be constantly vigilant. Since the January communication, I've received at least 50 To conceal myself further, I took drastic measures. Some of these steps cannot be shared at this time for my own safety. There is one thing I can discuss easily: the impact of significantly restricting my phone and internet usage. A Pew Research study published this year found that 96% of adults regularly access the internet. Furthermore, 98% use a cell phone and 85% use social media. The world has become increasingly dependent on online communication and information. Imagine living in a world where that daily necessity is also a threat. This is my reality. The steps that I have taken to protect myself have resulted in extreme restriction and isolation. Furthermore, they create about 3 hours of extra work per week to maintain. The amount of extra work equals about 150 hours per year, which is more than some people receive in vacation benefits. One of the deepest blows to restricting and concealing my internet and phone usage was shutting down an aspiring business that I had started. After losing 100 pounds, I was an aspiring weight loss coach and was creating my own curriculum to help others. I had produced approximately 20 podcast episodes, built a website, and had a good amount of momentum. Between website costs and other expenses of starting a business, I had invested more than $10,000 only to find the need to shut everything down completely to protect myself. When I logged in and looked at analytics and security data for my website, I realized that it had been incessantly visited by someone in Connecticut and was subjected to multiple security breaches. My website had become a weapon used against me. In March of 2024, Ms. Irwin contacted me and we interacted for the first time. Mr. Pezzo had given her enough identifying information about me that she was able to locate me despite my efforts to conceal my whereabouts, reduce my footprint online, and lock down my social media. I was skeptical and cautious, but I knew of Ms. Irwin because Mr. Pezzo had mentioned her to me in the past. Therefore, I cautiously replied to her message. The information that became available and the things I watched unfold convinced me that the crossroads we were at during sentencing in 2023 had only further turned in the wrong direction. Within weeks of sentencing, rather than focusing on the things asked of him in the plea bargain, Mr. Pezzo had shifted his behavior towards another victim. First, what's uncanny is this. You know how they say everybody has a twin? According to statistics, every person on earth has about 6 doppelgangers. Furthermore, the odds of meeting your doppelganger are 1 in a trillion. Ms. Irwin and I have such similar appearances that a photo fooled my own mother. Furthermore, we share similar histories and mannerisms, each both having brain injuries from car accidents. There are days interacting with Ms. Irwin that it feels like I'm looking at myself in the mirror in both appearance and experience. Even though meeting my doppelganger was startling, the way we met and some of the things she told me were even more disturbing. Those things that she had shared with me only helped me lose sleep at night and remain vigilant during the day. A few of those things included, Mr. Pezzo had sent her a photo of a firearm and a bullet with her name on it. This was one photo among several firearm photos that he had sent to her as he boasted he had the code to his father's safe. Mr. Pezzo had faked his own death and then impersonated his mother to convince Miss Irwin that he had committed suicide. He attempted to convince her that the family's suffering was her fault. Mr. Pezzo had contacted and threatened her at work. He also had pretended to be fictitious customers, which resulted in the involvement of her HR department. Mr. Pezzo had created a profile in the Nextdoor app and pretended to be someone living in her neighborhood. And the one that I find personally most outrageous, Mr. Pezzo had used my name, my photos of our family cat, and previous email addresses of mine in order to harass her. In fact, when Googling my name and the search word phone number, I saw phone numbers in Connecticut associated with my name and age. These are only highlights of what has unfolded here. Whether Mr. Pezzo has been completely honest, fabricated parts of his behavior, or a combination of both, the effect has been the same. A sense of looming fear that things will escalate further and something terrible will happen. I have found myself wondering, are we headed for catastrophe? There is anger that the behavior I stood up to and have attempted to put a stop to has continued, and another victim now exists. No one deserves to be subjected to this nightmare. It's a nightmare that I want to wake up from and forget. In this case, I fear not only for my emotional safety, but also for my physical safety. It may initially seem that Mr. Pezzo's behavior is more of a nuisance than a threat. Yet, I do not forget speaking to Mr. Pezzo's grandmother on the phone while he was locked in the bathroom with his grandfather's rifle in 2020 while a SWAT team negotiated with him. Furthermore, what I watched unravel are the things that were disclosed to me in the summer of 2002 at the time of the friendship breakdown are not forgotten. Mr. Pezzo told me that he snapped one evening and poisoned his dad's dog in the basement to kill it, and then panicked to figure out what to do with the dog's death. Contact to his therapist was a necessity after he disclosed to me that he was thinking of harming himself and others. This included thoughts of his entire house with his family inside of it. Mr. Pezzo accidentally showed me his internet search history on his computer one evening while on a video call, and it was full of searches related to suicide and the feeling of optimism for a new trajectory from the plea bargain and sentence has evaporated. The necessity to lock down my entire life has left me feeling like I am the one in the case who has gone to jail. I feel entrapped and I feel ripped off. And I'm left constantly wondering, will this ever stop? Will there ever be an end? After dealing with this for so long, my thought process and daily life have changed drastically. I live my life in a constant state of fear and distress, never knowing from one minute to the next when Mr. Pezzo will become unhinged, never knowing if the person on the other side of the phone or computer is real, never knowing if one day the next escalation could be he just shows up at my work or home when his attempts to reach me online are unsuccessful. Due to this, I wake up every morning to a new reality and live a completely different life. When most people wake up in the morning, what is the first thing they see? For me, it's the pencil on my bedside table. It's a constant reminder that I need a safety plan to protect myself. Despite my best efforts, I cannot ignore or forget the stress. There are constant reminders. Imagine when you brush your hair in the morning, you notice chunks of your hair coming out. When the doctor rules out any medical condition that could be causing it, you find yourself wishing the solution could be just some simple medication. Imagine sitting on a toilet struggling with bowel movements because stress has aggravated your digestive problems. And imagine the situation escalates to the point that the stress contributes to a critical event requiring admittance to the hospital. Imagine at a routine dentist visit, your dentist looks at you concerned and asks if you've been under stress because it appears you've been grinding your teeth. Imagine losing over 100 pounds and keeping it off for more than 7 years, only to relapse in emotional eating and find yourself fighting weight fluctuations. Imagine the isolation and loneliness that sets in as you disconnect from a connected world. Imagine a constant state of inner unrest and a feeling that you have lost control of your own life. This is my life now. And in an attempt to sort it all out, I have entered trauma-informed therapy. Ultimately, it's me that's paying this bill, and I expect it to total more than $4,000. Additionally, I'm paying for all the extra phone services, the cost to conceal carry to feel protected, my relocation expenses, extra medical costs from stress, and the fees for the company that scrubs my data from the internet. It was me who took on the steep emotional and financial costs when I was forced to disconnect my aspiring business. The losses are substantial, and the stagnation as I sit in a state of isolation and hypervigilance is even greater. When do I get my life back? There is no shortage of words in the dictionary that would describe how I feel standing before this court today. Yet to put it concisely, I feel angry and I'm exasperated. The freedom to choose has consequences, good or bad. The plea bargain came with a level of obligation to do better, which I believe Mr. Pezzo has not met. The consequences of Mr. Pezzo's reckless behavior have caused significant damage to both Ms. Irwin and myself in terms of physical, emotional, and financial damages. The punishment given to Mr. Pezzo for violating probation and the plea bargain will not give me 3 or more years of my life back. Any punishment that discourages Mr. Pezzo from continuing this behavior could allow Ms. Irwin and I to start healing and could prevent another victim from wasting 3 or more years of their lives. You may have noticed, Your Honor, that this victim impact statement has a very different tone from my previous one. In my previous victim impact statement, I pointed out that the plea bargain and sentencing was another choice point for Jake. We have passed multiple choice points and opportunities to, quote, hit the brakes, so to speak. Yet Mr. Pezzo has made no real effort to choose a different course of action and has only escalated his behavior and become more elusive in doing so. Because of Mr. Pezzo's history of firearms use and references, my observation of his disregard for court and law enforcement orders, his relentless intimidation, and his abuse of Ms. Irwin and myself, I am concerned that Mr. Pezzo poses a danger to himself, to me, to Ms. Irwin, and the community as a whole. I respectfully request that the no contact order remain in effect for as long as possible, and that the use of all electronic devices be significantly restricted or revoked. It is also my hope that the court consider the strongest consequences permitted by law to deter this behavior from continuing to happen. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. I hear you, and I'm extremely saddened for the space that you have to live out.
I can't hear you make.
I said I'm saddened and very concerned about the space that you have to live out of this time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And you're Miss Irwin?
I also have an impact statement, and I would like to share it if that's okay with you.
All right, please come forward.
Would it be okay if I were to also stand?
Yes.
Judge Washington, I truly appreciate the opportunity to tell the court about the impact of Mr. Pezzo's actions have had on my life. The only reason Miss Laramie and I met is because of Mr. Pezzo. Growing up in Fremont, California, I never imagined I would end up in a Michigan courtroom. I have come here all the way from California today to share what led me here. In late 2019, I met Mr. Pezzo online and we began playing video games together. The initial friendship between Mr. Pezzo and I hit a rough patch in 2020 when he seemed jealous of a new relationship I had begun. In light of this new relationship and Mr. Pezzo's behavior at the time, I terminated our friendship and changed my phone number. This is where I wish the story ended. Yet in February 2023, Mr. Pezzo reconnected with me and we casually chatted and played games together. My biggest regret and mistake in life was allowing Mr. Pezzo back into my life. There is a profound sense of shame in this decision. Shortly after we reconnected in early 2023, Mr. Pezzo disappeared. I later learned that he had been jailed for stalking and harassing Miss Laramie. However, I was not aware of this at the time. In September 2023, Mr. Pezzo reappeared and messaged me. While he alluded to some legal troubles, he didn't elaborate. He explained his absence by saying that he just needed some space. During a video call, I noticed an ankle monitor attached to Mr. Pezzo, leading me to ask more in-depth questions. At the time, my friend seemed to unravel before my eyes, and it felt as if all hell was breaking loose. Mr. Pezzo began drinking heavily, smoking marijuana, fighting with his friends, and other concerning behaviors. My feelings were a mix of concern and confusion. On one hand, his behavior was concerning, so I felt compelled to seek a solution. And on the other, I felt the need to distance myself and set boundaries for my own mental health and well-being. However, any attempt I made to distance myself or set boundaries resulted in escalating behavior that felt out of control, dangerous, and concerning. As a result, I felt trapped. Things had gotten particularly bad by late December 2023. As the new year approached, Mr. Pezzo faked his own death, pretended to be his mother, and proceeded to pretend that I was responsible for his suicide and his family's suffering. For a week, I struggled to process this and wondered if he really committed. As a response, I called the police to find out if there had been any suicides in the area. The whole thing had been a lie. As this tactic failed, Mr. Pezzo began directly threatening me. He sent me a picture of a pen and a with my name written on it. Using the Text Now app, he created disposable phone numbers to bombard me with texts and calls at all hours of the day and night. Pew Research Center reports that the median number of text messages per day is 10. I received hundreds of messages per day from Mr. Pezzo. The thought of checking my phone even made me uncomfortable. During February, the situation escalated and I contacted the police in Cheshire, Connecticut to report Mr. Pezzo's disturbing behavior. Mr. Pezzo was placed on a 5150 hold as a result.
But
Since his phone number was blocked,
what's a 5150 hold?
that means like a mental health crisis.
Gotcha.
And that I found out by one of the clinicians calling me to see if I would be willing to speak with Mr. Pezzo. Since his phone number was blocked, he attempted to convince me that he shot himself in the foot by emailing fake photos to my work email shortly after his release. I changed my phone number again on March 3rd. And that same day, I received the following voicemail on my work phone number. Laura, we need to talk. As soon as you hear this, you need to message me as soon as possible. If not, we can choose this path. And you know, I don't think you'll like the consequences, so it's up to you. You know where to find me. Imagine the embarrassment I felt when one of my coworkers walked in and heard one of the messages like that. The situation escalated to the point where HR had to intervene. The company even called Mr. Pezzo to warn him that legal action would be taken against him if he did not stop. Despite being warned by the HR department, he continued to create accounts and pretend to be fictitious customers. Ultimately, his behavior contributed to the loss of my job, as he posed to be a threat to the company. I found myself wondering, when and how is this nightmare going to end? But the nightmare continued. Swimming is my passion, and I teach children swim lessons during the summer. I began receiving messages from Mr. Pezzo through my website saying things like, Laura, your F word. If you don't respond to me today, you have your choice to make. If not, you'll be sorry that you didn't. He went on to make threats about my family and close relationships. On March 12th, I received a message. Tonight, before killing myself, I will send Aaron a Facebook message. You have left me alone, all alone, to dry up and for them to take over. I hope you're happy. Aaron is my boyfriend, and Mr. Pezzo constantly threatened to sabotage our relationship. In order to manipulate and control me, he used fear against the things I deeply care about. I'll admit that it worked for a while, but I didn't know what else to do. The situation was completely out of control. In mid-March, I requested U.S. Marshal Briggs to serve a restraining order against Mr. Pezzo. My hope was that it would stop the behavior and protect me from harm. In spite of this restraining order, Mr. Pezzo continued to stalk and harass me. Even though Mr. Pezzo lives in Connecticut, he posed as someone living in my neighborhood on the Nextdoor app to gain information about me, my physical location, and to intimidate me. He sent fictitious messages and emails using fake identities and attempted to inquire about swim lessons to gain access to me through my website. He also made up numerous fake social media accounts to contact me, even posing as old friends from high school. Between late fall 2023 and early 2024, Mr. Pezzo sent me thousands of harassing and threatening phone calls and text messages at all hours of the day. As a result, I changed my number at least 4 times and made drastic efforts to conceal my personal information. In spite of my attempts to escape, he would hunt me down like a dog. I constantly had to screen information and update friends, family, business clients, and medical providers on how to reach me. My phone felt like a weapon used against me. The amount of nonsense Mr. Pezzo has bombarded me with is so overwhelming, I can't keep track. But I estimate he has created more than 50 fake identities and accounts that has been used both personally and professionally to contact me by phone, email, and social media. Mr. Pezzo has repeatedly threatened to harm himself and to damage my relationships with family and friends if I do not contact him. Those threats felt real when on 3 separate occasions he sent me photos of. One was a Snapchat photo that was sent live, leading me to believe the threats were credible. He even bragged about having the code for his dad's safe. Mr. Pezzo repeatedly violates my boundaries and intrudes on my space. With all the stress piling on me, I began to wonder if I would ever find relief, much less an end to the madness. Was I ever going to be able to trust anything again? In late 2024, I decided to reach out to Miss Laramie. I expected her to be suspicious of me, so my message included an offer to video call with her screen off so that she could verify I was a real person. Imagine my surprise when she turned on her camera after verifying my identity and she looked just like me. Ms. Laramie gave me one piece of advice. She said, "You must stop responding to him, even if he is threatening you." Since she had been through this before, I trusted her, and I did just that. I stopped responding. I wish this was the part of the story where the clouds parted ways and the sun shined through and everything got better. The situation only worsened, and I wondered, will there ever be an end? Yet fighting for that end was critical because I had seemingly transformed into a version of myself that neither I nor the people in my life recognized. I was trying to cope with the feeling of violated, isolated, and helpless. My trust in others had been shattered, and there was no place I felt safe. I didn't even feel safe at home, at work, or in public. My stress was more than overwhelming, to the extent that on multiple occasions, I woke up to concerned expressions on the face of family members as they watched me experience a sudden surge of electrical activity to my brain, lose consciousness, and begin uncontrollably shaking. Or in the worst case scenario, I woke up feeling confused and disoriented. The stress was triggering seizures that had been in remission since my brain injury in 2015. The worsening of my seizures due to the stress caused by Mr. Pezzo's actions towards me is a deeply distressing situation. Stress is a well-known trigger for seizures, especially in individuals like me, who have conditions like epilepsy or seizure disorders. I felt like I had lost control of my life, my body, and my sanity. I wanted to protect myself and became hyper aware of my online presence. I constantly checked and adjusted my privacy settings, deleted old accounts, and worried about the information. I'm sorry. I'm worried about what information might be used against me. The fear of being watched or monitored resulted in sleepless nights, panic attacks, and a growing sense of isolation. And when we struggle, we lean on our friends and family, right? Indeed, friends and family tried to offer support, only to see me withdraw. I felt an unwillingness to share the full extent of what I have gone through because the situation felt so invasive and shameful. I also worried that their involvement would put a target on them, and I wanted to shield them from that. I also didn't want to burden my family or friends. How do you tell your dad that you're being stalked and threatened while he's scheduled in preparation for his open heart surgery? While struggling with inflation and high prices in California, Mr. Pezzo's actions against me only resulted in an increasing stack of bills. There was the cost of a new phone and multiple activation charges. There was a loss of income due to Mr. Pezzo deliberately harassing me at work and sabotaging my job. When I had to shut down my swim lessons website, I lost revenue. There was a need to take time off work to deal with legal and health issues. Expenses and fees related to court were incurred. Oh, and Miss Laramie has highly recommended trauma-informed therapy to me. But it's hard to start new treatment when you are changing healthcare due to changing new jobs and trying to catch up on bills. But you know what's worse than the financial impact? It's the time. I can't replace that. My life has been nothing short of a living nightmare as a result of Mr. Pezzo's actions. Making sense of all these actions is challenging. I often ask myself, why didn't he stop? How could someone who got into trouble for doing this behavior to someone else turn around and do the same thing to me within weeks of being sentenced? Who else could be out there? I struggle to make sense of what has occurred. Rather than focus on making better choices, it seems that Mr. Pezzo has simply honed his skills to harass, stalk, and intimidate others. As a final note, I would like to emphasize the profound impact this harassment and stalking has had on my life. I no longer feel safe, at peace, nor autonomous. Due to Mr. Pezzo's relentless and deliberate actions, I have suffered emotional and physical hardship, including seizures, anxiety, and disruption of my relationships. Even though this experience has tested me in unimaginable ways, I am standing here today to reclaim my voice and assert my right to live without fear. To ensure my safety and peace of mind moving forward, I ask the court to recognize the severity of this ordeal and impose measures that will hold Mr. Pezzo accountable and ensure my safety. It is absolutely unacceptable for anyone to experience what I have experienced. And putting this to a stop is essential. It is my hope that sharing how Mr. Pezzo's actions have impacted me can help bring justice and closure. I also hope to prevent others from experiencing the same pain as I have. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you. Are you aware of what's going on with the California case at all?
I mean, yes. Is there a particular question you'd like me to
Do you
answer?
know what his sentence was? Has he been sentenced?
So he was found guilty for harassing, stalking, phone calls, unwanted contact, so on and so forth. And the district attorney in Alameda County has been working with me to go to the fullest extent possible.
But has he been sentenced yet? Do you know?
Yes,
It was 2 charges, remember?
yes, 2 charges. I have the paperwork, but not on me, and off the top of my head, I cannot accurately tell you what.
Okay. That's
You
okay.
told me that the second charge was for violating a restraining order, and the first one was for harassing and stalking, was that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, I'm looking more about what his sentence is and what the charges are. So, okay. Thank you so very much. And I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to be here and to share.
Of course. Mr. Mr. Lebo, do you know what the sentence is from the California case?
Your Honor, I am trying to see if I can find that. I did speak to Mr. Pezzo about that. He seemed a little bit unclear. He did show me a document from that case which had some probation conditions on it, but I'm not aware of the specific sentence. I do have it pulled up my other monitor and I'm trying to find that, Your Honor.
What about, does anyone know that? Any of the attorneys? Ms. Woods?
Judge, I do not have any information in regards to that.
Thank you. All right, sentencing in this case is going to be on December 5th, 2024. It's going to be at 11 a.m. It's going to be in person. Mr. Pezzo, you need to get here in person. In the meantime, sir, you're to have no electronic communication. That's computer, telephone, anything other than for court.
All right, Your Honor.
So his sentencing is not going to be today. I need to find out what's going on in the other case. I'm going to ask counsel to provide me with that documentation as soon as possible. Hopefully by no later than 24 hours. I want to know what his sentence is in the other case. Yes, Ms. Laramie?
I don't know if it's out of place for me to ask this at this time or if I'm allowed to ask this, so please feel free to kick it back if this is not an appropriate question. But I'm wondering if Mr. Pezzo may have his tether on before he returns to court.
I don't know how we're going to get a tether on him, but I am ordering that he be placed on a GPS tether.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. We'll see you all back here on, well, I'll see him on December the 5th.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Holy cow. I tried to put myself in these ladies' position and I was having a hard time with that. I mean, he is nuts. And I'm pretty sure these aren't the only 2 ladies that he's done this with. He's done this before, and he's probably continuing to do it with other women that don't know this is going on in court. And the crazy thing is, the first one I'm not 100% certain of, but the second lady, the one that lives in California, they've never met face to face. It's all been video chats and playing game, on Xbox or whatever. I've never done it, so I don't really know, but they've been playing games on Xbox, and that's how they met. And he is continually going after this woman, and they've never even met face to face. I mean, I thought they had like a relationship, and then I realized no, they've never even met. He just can't leave them alone. He's obsessed. And I don't think he's going to quit just because a judge told him to. Because he had that year held over his head, and he still didn't stop. He still kept on. So I think he's going to have to be in prison, and for a long time, for it to stop. 365 days, as soon as he gets out, he's going to go right back to it. He's not going to quit. And unfortunately, these two ladies' lives are forever altered because of him. I'm going to plug in on the 5th. I want to see him go to jail badly. And I just hope that the judge could give him 365 days for each violation, both ladies. That's at least 2 years, or that'll be 2 years, I hope. I don't know if she can. She's probably trying to figure out how she can keep him in jail as long as possible. But we'll see. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.